started. So we're going to pick back up in Genesis chapter 24 and just continue on until I'm already tired of reading, but I like being the one that's reading just simply because of the fact I know what I'm reading, and just makes it easier for me to relay, and I can stop and all of that. Not that I don't like having someone read at times, but for this particular purpose, it's just easier for me to take the things that are coming to my mind and the things that I know that are there, the changes and all of that. It's just easier for me to read it. So, starting back in Genesis chapter 24, verse 1, and it says, "And Abraham was old and well stricken in age, and Yahweh had blessed Abraham in all things." Verse 2, "And Abraham said unto his eldest servant of his house that ruled over all that he had, Put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh." Verse 3, "And I will make thee swear by the Elohim of heaven," speaking of Yahweh, "and the Elohim of the earth, that thou shalt not take my wife, that thou shalt not take a wife unto my son of the daughters of the Canaanites among whom I dwell." Verse 4, "But thou shalt go unto my country and to my kindred, and take a wife unto my son Isaac." So now Abraham is making it clear, do not go back to the land of the Canaanites, or into the land of the Canaanites, where he dwells and has dwelt for many years, and make sure that you keep my son Isaac away from these heathen nations, which is what the Bible refers to them as. Okay? Verse 5, "And the servant said unto him, Peradventure," or what if, "the woman will not be willing to follow me unto this land? Must I needs bring your son again unto the land from whence thou camest?" Now listen to what Abraham says in verse 6. "And Abraham said unto him, Beware that thou bring not my son thither or there again. And the Elohim, Yahweh of heaven, which took me from my father's house and from the land of my kindred, and which spake unto me and sware unto me, saying, Unto thy seed will I give this land. And he shall send his angel before thee, and thou shalt not take a wife unto my son from there." Verse 8, "And if the woman will not be willing to follow you, then thou shalt be clear from this oath. Only bring my son back here again." In other words, stay away from Canaan. If the woman declines, then bring my son back here, and at least we'll know that it wasn't Yahweh who is ordaining this. Okay? Verse 9, now he's confirming it again. "And the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master, and sware to him concerning this matter." So this was like shaking hands back in that day, and this was him making an oath. And the servants took this very, very seriously. And you'll see that even Abraham's servants praise the Father for everything that he does, and they love Abraham. It's not like they're servants in the matter to where Abraham is lording over them and he's not treating them well. That's not the case at all, and you're going to see that as we move on. Verse 10, "And the servant took 10 camels of the 10 camels of his master, and departed, for all the goods of his master were in his hand. And he arose and went to Mesopotamia unto the city of Nahor," again, Abraham's brother. "And he made his camels to kneel down without the city by a well of water at the time of evening, even at the time that the women go out to draw water. And he said, O Elohim, Yahweh of my master Abraham." Now watch, he's praying for his master Abraham. "I pray thee Send me a good seed this day, and show me kindness unto my master Abraham. So they feared the father as well. Verse 13, behold, I stand here by the well of water, and the daughters of the men of this city come out to draw water. So these are the Hivites and the Canaanites and all the people. They have the first rights to the well at this moment. Okay? So he has to wait. And let it come to pass that the damsel to whom I shall say, let down thy pitcher, I pray thee, that I may drink. And she may say, drink, and I will give thy camels drink also. So he's asking Yahweh that allow this woman to come out, and when she comes out, allow her to offer to water my camels and to give me a drink as well. Let the same be she that shall appoint for thy servant Isaac, and thereby shall I know that thou hast showed me kindness unto my master. Verse 15, and it came to pass before he had been done speaking that, behold, Rebekah came out and was born to Bethuel the son of Milcah, the queen. Milcah means the queen, the wife of Neor, Abraham's brother, with her pitcher upon her shoulder. Verse 16, and the damsel was very fair to look upon, a virgin, neither had she had any man known her. And she went down to the well and filled her pitcher and came up. And the servant ran to meet her, and she said, let me, I pray thee, drink a little water of thy pitcher. He said. And she said, drink, my master. And she hasted, and she let down her pitcher upon her hand and gave it to him to drink. Now, that word hasted means she wasn't taking her time. Okay? Verse 19, and when she was done giving him drink, she said, I will draw water for thy camels also until they are done drinking. Verse 20, and she hasted and emptied her pitcher into the throw, and ran again unto the well, and to draw water, and drew for his camels. Now, he's got 12 camels with him, and he's got money with him. But she's not taking her time, guys. She's rushing into this. So now the servant knows for a surety that this is Yahweh's hand that is in this. Verse 21, and the man, wondering at her, held his peace, to wit whether the master had made his journey prosperous or not, meaning the Father or the Messiah. 22, and it came to pass, as the camels had done drinking, that the man took the golden urn and a half shekel weight, and 2 bracelets for her hands of 10 shekels weight of gold. And he said, whose daughter art thou? Tell me, I pray thee. Is there room in thy father's house for us to lodge in? And she said unto him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, which she bare unto Neor, Abraham's father, Neor. She said, moreover, unto him, we have both straw and provender enough, and room to lodge in. So they've got enough food and for the animals and for him, and a room for him to lodge in. And the man bowed down his head and worshipped Yahweh. And he said, blessed be the Elohim Yahweh of my master Abraham, who hath not destitute my master of his mercy and his truth. I, being in the way, again, this is why we say we are followers of the way. The Elohim led me to the house of my master's brethren. So again, this is the house of his master's brethren, Abraham's brethren. And the damsel ran and told them of her mother's house these things. And Rebekah had a brother, and his name was Laban. Now, this is the first time we're going to meet Mr. Laban. And you're going to see that Mr. Laban is all about the money, okay? And Laban means white ones. And Laban ran out unto the man unto the well. Again, Laban has just found out. Rebekah's just come in with all this gold on her, and here comes Laban. Laban's running out to him. And it came to pass, when he saw the earrings and the bracelets upon his sister's hand, and when he heard the words of Rebekah his sister, saying, Thus spake a man unto me, that came unto the man, and behold, he stood by the camels at the well. And he said, Come in, thou blessed of Yahweh, wherefore standest thou without? I have prepared the house and the rooms for your camels. And the man came into the house, and ungirded his camels, and gave straw and provender for the camels, and water to wash his feet, and the men's feet that were with him. And there was set meat before him to eat. But he said, I will not eat until I have told my errand. So in other words, I'm not going to eat until I explain to you why I'm here. And Laban said, Speak on. And he said, I am Abraham's servant. And Yahweh hath blessed my master greatly, and he is become great. And he hath given him flocks and herds and silver and gold and men servants and maidservants and camels and asses. And Sarah, my master's wife, bare a son to my master when she was old, and unto him he hath given all that he hath. And my master made me swear, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife to the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose land I dwell. But thou shalt go unto my father's house, and to my kindred, and take a wife unto my son. And I said unto my master, Peradventure, or what if, the woman will not follow me? And he said unto me, The Elohim, the master, before whom I walk, will send his angel with thee, and prosper thy way, and thou shalt take a wife for my son of my kindred and of my father's house. So again, Abraham very clearly was told this information via an angel, because he told his messenger that an angel was going to prepare his messenger's way to bring him directly to Rebekah. And we see this all throughout the scripture. Yahweh always sends his angels before his people. We see this in Exodus 23:20 through 25, where he sends the Messiah before them. Give me 1 second, guys. I need to move this heater closer. I'm freezing. All right. Verse 41. Then thou shalt be clear of this oath when thou comest to my kindred, and if they give not thee one, thou shalt be clear from my oath. And I came this day unto the well. Again, these wells are very important, okay? And said, O my Elohim, Yahweh of my servant, of my master Abraham, if now thou do prosper my way which I go, behold, I will stand at the well of water, and it shall come to pass that when a virgin cometh forward to draw water, I will say to her, Give me, I pray thee, a little water of thy pitcher to drink. And she will say to me, Both drink thou, and I will also draw for thy camels. Let the same be the woman whom Yahweh hath appointed out for my master's son. Verse 45, And before I was done speaking in my heart, behold, Rebekah came forth with a pitcher on her shoulder, and she went down unto the well and drew the water. And I said unto her, Let me drink, I pray thee. And she made haste, and let down her pitcher from her shoulder, and said, Drink, and I will give thy camels also drink. So I drank, and she made the camels to drink also. And I asked her, and I said, Whose daughter art thou? And she said, The daughter of Bethuel, Nahor's son, whom Milcah bare unto him. Again, confirming the seed all the way back to where we started. And I put an earring upon her face, and bracelets upon her hands, and I bowed down my head and worshipped Yahweh, and blessed the Elohim of my master Abraham, which led me in the right way to take my master's brother's daughter unto his son. Did you catch that? To take my master's brother's daughter, Rebekah, unto his son Isaac. And now, if you will deal kindly and truly with my master, tell me, and if not, tell me. then I may turn to the right hand or to the left. Then Laban and Bethuel answered and said, the thing proceedeth from Elohim. We cannot speak unto thee bad or good. Behold, Rebekah is before thee. Take her and go, and let her by thy master's son's wife, as Yahweh hath spoken. And it came to pass that when Abraham's servant heard their words, he worshipped Yahweh, bowing himself to the earth, always thanking the Father. Verse 53, and the servant brought forth jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment, and gave them to Rebekah, and he also to her brother and to her mother precious things, and did eat and did drink, and the men that were with him, and tarried all night. And they rose up in the morning, and he said, send me on my way unto my master. And her brother and mother said, let the damsel abide with us a few days, at least 10. After that she shall go. And he said unto them, hinder me not, seeing that Elohim, Yahweh, hath prospered my way. Send me away, that I might go to my master. And they said, we will call the damsel, Rebekah, and inquire at her mouth. And they called Rebekah, and said unto her, wilt thou go with this man? And she said, I will go. And they sent Rebekah, their sister, and her nurse, and Abraham's servant, and his men. And they blessed Rebekah, and said unto her, thou art our sister, be thou the mother of thousands of millions. Be thy mother of thousands of millions, and let thy seed possess the gate of those which hate them. There's that gate again, and there's that promise of that seed again. Verse 61, and Rebekah arose, and her damsels, and they rode upon the camels, and followed the man. And the servant took Rebekah, and went his way. And Isaac came forth from the way of the well in Leorai, and this is the well of the living Elohim, that's what it means, for he dwelt in the south country. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field at eventide. Now, he's not out there doing yoga, guys. His mother just died, okay? And he lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, the camels were coming. And Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she lighted off the camel. For she had said unto the servant, what man is this that walketh in the field to meet us? And the servant said, it is my master. Therefore she took a veil and covered herself. And the servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. And Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife. And he loved her, and Isaac was comforted after the death of his mother. That's the end of that chapter. Now, we're going to go to the next chapter, Genesis chapter 25, and we're going to read about Jacob and Esau, okay? And this is going to get interesting, guys, as I said. Now that we've covered the chapter 24, everything else after this is just icing on the cake, okay? It's, without a doubt, you should have no problem going back through this and fully understanding what's taking place. Genesis 25, verse 1. Then again, Abraham took a wife and named her Keturah, okay? And she bare him Zimran and Jokshan and Median and Midian and Ishbak and Shushan. So here's the thing. This another thing with Moses and the thing with Abraham, Keturah, right? Understand Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, is the one that comes out. He's got two names. He goes in Scripture by two names. We'll just use Jethro for now. But you'll see later on that he goes by another name. Now let's look at Exodus chapter 3. Okay? Verse 1. It says, now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock on the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of Yahweh, even at Horeb. Okay? Now let's look at Exodus 18, chapter 1. And it reads, When Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses' father-in-law, heard that Yahweh had done for Moses and Israel, his people, and that Yahweh had brought Israel out of Egypt. Oopsie. So I guess he didn't marry an Egyptian woman like everybody keeps saying. Again, if you were a priest in Midian, understand that in Egypt is the same thing as we see in Africa right now. There was North Africa, where the Egyptian pharaohs lived, and there was South Africa. In the south, the southern part of Africa is Midian, okay? Egypt at the time, Egypt. In South Egypt is Midian. Now again, I'm hinting around something here. I'm not going to come out and say it. But if you look at Africa, the northern part of Africa is inhabited by a certain people, and South Africa is inhabited by a few certain people because they've been moved and pushed down into that land. If you don't believe me, go look up videos of the military of all of Africa in the 1940s and 50s, and then look at it now. Yes, all of these videos are going to be posted consecutively. So, if you were Jethro and you lived in Midian, and you were a priest, you were not of these other tribes. You were a priest unto the Most High, Yahweh. Okay? All right, picking back up in verse 3. And Jokshan begat Sheba and Dedan, and the sons of Dedan were Ashram and Leshem and Laam, and the sons of Midian, Ephah and Epher, and Hanak, and Abadah, and Eladah. All of these were the children of Ketra. So these are Abraham's family. These are the descendants of Abraham, okay? All of the children that come of Ketra. Verse 5, And Abraham gave all that he had unto Isaac. Okay? Now, let's look at Romans 9, verse 7. It says, Neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all the children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called. So we're here. If you read all of Romans 9, it'll explain to you that not all of Israel is Israel. It explains to you that Yahweh loved loved Jacob, but hated Esau. And it confirms, as we just read, that the promise of the seed, the offspring, would come through Isaac. And then he explains why he destroyed the people of Egypt. All of that is in Paul's letters, okay? That's just a small part in the New Testament. I'm just giving you one place to go to confirm this seed, because that's what we're reading about. All right, picking back up in verse 6. But unto the sons and the concubines which Abraham had, Abraham gave gifts and sent them away from Isaac his son. Okay, concubines had to go. While he yet lived eastward in the east country of Midian. And these are the days and years of Abraham's life, which he lived 160 years. Exactly the 100-year mark he received the promise. Then Abraham gave up the ghost and died in a good old age, just as Yahweh promised. An old man full of years, and was gathered to his people. Now remember the tomb that he bought from the Hittites. Verse 9. And his sons Isaac and Ishmael, buried him in the cave of Mashpil, I can't pronounce that again, in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar the Hittite, which were before Mamre at Hebron. Okay, Mamre, the place of the oaks. Verse 10, the field which Abraham purchased from the sons of Heth, Heth meaning Hittites, there was Abraham buried, and Sarah his wife. And it came to pass after his death, the death of Abraham, that Yahweh blessed the son Isaac, and Isaac dwelt in the land at the well Lo Ruai. the well of the living Elohim. Back to the wells again. Now these are the generations of Ishmael, Abraham's son, who Hagar the Egyptian, and again, Hagar was of the lineage of Abraham. She was from Egypt, and she married her son Isaac into the actual Egyptian bloodline, okay, causing the descendants of Ishmael, all of his children, to be from the land of Egypt, also making them the Arabian people. Now, it's no coincidence that we're seeing that all of these nations that are mentioned here are the nations that are coming into our country right now. And they want a certain law put in place, okay? Verse 13. Okay, so these are the nations of Ishmael according to their generations, the firstborn of Ishmael. Again, I'm not going to read all of these. I'm going to pick back up in 16. You guys can read Ishmael's descendants, but it's according to the promise that the angel made and that Yahweh reaffirmed with Abraham. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names by their towns and by their castles, 12 princes according to their nations, the Arabian nations, okay? And it's always going to be in 12s, just like the children being born are always going to be born in 2. And these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years, and he gave up the ghost and died and was gathered unto his people. And they dwelt from Havilah unto Shur, that's where the wall was, okay? That is before Egypt, as thou goest toward Assyria. And he died in the presence of all of his brethren. And he was not, I mention again, he was not buried with Abraham. Verse 19, and these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begat Isaac. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Pandamaram, the sister of Laban, the Syrian. So Laban was not a Syrian by blood. That's where he was from. Again, we read about Laban in Abraham's lineage. Very, very clear. Verse 21, and Isaac entreated the Elohim for his wife because she was barren. And Yahweh was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And the children struggled together within her, and she said, if it be so, why am I thus? So if this is your plan, Yahweh, why are these children struggling in my womb? And she went to inquire of Yahweh. And Yahweh said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. A question. Up to this point, have they mixed seed with any other nation? No. I've explained all the bloodlines, and they're all right here. We just saw that Isaac was buried with his own people, not with his father Abraham. And now we're reading that Yahweh is telling Rebekah that she has 2 nations in her womb and 2 manner of people. These 2 children just came from the loins of Isaac, okay? And they shall be separated from thy bowels, and one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb, and the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. Now, let's use some common logic and understand why he came out red all over. Forget the fact that he's hairy. Some children are just hairier than others. He came out red because they were fighting in the womb, literally struggling in the womb. That's verse 23. That's why we see Rebekah going, asking, why is this so, Yahweh? Why are they fighting? Verse 27, the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter and a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tents. And Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. So again, who did Isaac love? Esau. And again, Esau was a manly man. He was a hunter, and that was appealing to Isaac, okay? But Rebekah was a little wiser in her age and was understanding the promises that were being made. Verse 29, and Jacob sawed pottage, meaning he was stewing pottage. And Esau came from the field, and he was faint. Now again, if you want to truly understand why he was faint, read the book of Jasher. He just beheaded Nimrod, and all of Nimrod's men were chasing him. And he didn't care about his birthright, and we're going to read about that. Verse 30, and Esau said unto Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore his name was called Edom. Okay, we're going to read about this later as well. Verse 31, and Jacob said, sell me this day thy birthright. And Esau said, behold, I am at the point and ready to die. And what profit shall this birthright do to me? And Jacob said, swear to me this day. And he sware unto him, and he sold his birthright unto Jacob. Now, full stop. If you love the Father, and you loved your father, Isaac, your earthly father, why would you sell your birthright, knowing that everything that Isaac had would one day be yours? He didn't care about his birthright. Verse 34, Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage and lentils, and he did eat and drink, and he rose up early and went his way, and Esau despised his birthright. It's very clear, guys. He despised his own birthright. He sold it for food. And again, he did take Nimrod's head off. I'll give him that. And you will see that these two are going to be reunited later on. But it's going to take some time. All right, let's read Romans 9 again, 7 through 14. Neither, because they are of the seed of Abraham, are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called. That is, that which are the children of the flesh. These are not the children of Yahweh, but the children of the promise are counted for the seed. And who is the seed promised? To Isaac. Verse 9, for this is the word of promise. At this time I will come, and Sarah shall have a son. Remember, we just read through this. This was the promise. And not only this, but when Rebekah, which is what we're reading now, had also conceived by one, even by our father Isaac, for the children, being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil, it's speaking of the flesh, not of the seed here, that the purpose of Yahweh according to the election might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth. And it was said unto her, the elder shall serve the younger. And as it is written, Jacob I have loved, but Esau have I hated. What shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with Yahweh? Yahweh forbid. Do we dare say there's unrighteousness with our father because he has a chosen seed? God forbid. Again. All right, now, picking up in Genesis chapter 26. Pay very close attention, guys, because as we continue on, you're going to start seeing more and more of these same patterns that have been going on through these bloodlines since we started in Genesis chapter 1. Okay? Here we go again with a famine. And there was a famine in the land, beside the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went unto Abimelech, which means father of the king of the Philistines, unto Gerar. Verse 2, and Yahweh appeared unto him and said, go not down into Egypt, dwell in the land which I shall tell of thee. Verse 3, sojourn in the land, and I will be with thee, and I will bless thee. For unto thee and unto thy seed I will give all of these countries. Sound familiar? This is happening at child after child after child. This is why it says Yahweh is the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay? He didn't say of the Hivites and of the Perizzites and of the Jebusites. He made it very clear that he had a holy chosen seed. Okay? Verse 5, because that Abraham speaking of his father, obeyed my voice and kept my charge and my commandments and my statutes and my laws. 5 things. 5 is grace. And Isaac dwelled in Gerar. And the men of this place asked him of his wife, and he said, she is my sister. Remember what we saw prior to this? What did Abraham say about his wife when they would go into these lands? She's my sister, right? All right, she is my sister, for he feared to say, she is my wife, lest, said he, the men of this place should unalive me for Rebekah, because she was fair to look upon. And again, the kings would go and gather these beautiful women. And it came to pass, when he had been there for a long time, that Abimelech the king of the Philistines looked out of the window and saw, and behold, Isaac was sporting with Rebekah his wife. Meaning they were probably like making out and kissing and all of that. That's sporting, right? Verse 9, and Abimelech called Isaac and said, behold, of a surety, she is thy wife. And how saidest thou, she's my sister? And Isaac said unto him, because I said, lest I die for fear. So this was a common practice, and we've already seen this before. And Abimelech said, what is it that thou hast done unto us? One of thy people might have lightly have line with thy wife, that thou should have brought guiltness upon us. And Abimelech charged all his people, saying, he that toucheth this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. So again, give props where props are due. Abimelech, once again, is doing what is right. And he remembered what happened with Abraham. Okay, this isn't going to happen. Verse 12, then Isaac sowed in that land, and he receiveth in the same year 100-fold, and Yahweh blessed him, same way he did his father. And the men waxed great, and went forth, and grew until he became very great. Verse 14, for he had possessions and flocks, and possessions of herds, and a great store of servants, and the Philistines envied him. Why? Why did they envy him? Verse 15, for all the wells which his father's servants had digged in the days of Abraham his father, the Philistines had stopped them and filled them with earth. Now we're back to the wells again. And Abimelech said to Isaac, go from us, for thou art much mightier than we. Again, telling these people, go, get out of our land. We don't want any problems with you or your God. Okay, because we already know he's Elohim who can close wombs, and we don't need that here. Verse 18, and Isaac digged again the wells of water, which they had digged in the days of Abraham his father, for the Philistines had stopped them after the death of Abraham. Now there's tension. And when he called their names after their names by which his father had called them. So, question, how do you keep finding this water unless the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is with you? I guess we haven't gotten to Jacob yet, but still, just give us some time. And again, why weren't the Philistines being blessed, and why were they filling in these wells? They could have been drinking out of them themselves. Okay? Verse 19, and Isaac's servants digged in the valley and found there a well, a spring of water. And the herdmen of Gerar did strive with Isaac's herdmen. Remember, we saw this again when we were back in Genesis chapter, I think it was 16 and 17, where we saw Lot and Abraham striving with their herdsmen. And now the herdsmen of Gerar and the herdsmen of Isaac are saying, this water is ours. And he called unto the name of the well Esek, which is contention, because they strove with him. And they digged another well and strove for that also. And he called the name of that Sitnah, hated, means hated. Verse 22, and he removed from thence. So you're seeing his character, right? He has his father's character. He keeps moving. These people keep attacking his well, and he keeps moving away to keep peace. Okay? Verse 22, and he removed from thence and digged another well, and they strove not, and he called the name of that Rehoboth, which means faithful. And he said, for now Yahweh hath made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. Verse 23, and he went up from thence to Beersheba, again, the well of the oath. So as we see, we're back to the original wells that were given to Abraham. How is this? Because Yahweh has always kept his promises. And he promised Abraham that if Abraham walked after him and kept his laws, statutes, commandments, Sabbath days, all of these things holy, that he would give all these things to him and his seed after him and his seed after him for a perpetual covenant, and ongoing through all generations, all the way to the end of this book. Okay? Verse 25, and he builded an altar there and called upon the name of Yahweh. And he pitched his tent there, and Isaac's servants digged a well. Then Abimelech went to Gerar, Azoth of his friends of Pichakol. Again, we read about this earlier, the chief captain of his army. And Isaac said unto them, wherefore come ye to me, saying, you hate me, and have sent me away from you? And he said, we saw certainly that Yahweh was with thee. And we said, let there be now an oath betwixt us, and betwixt us and thee, and let us make a covenant with thee. Now, this is the second time this is happening. Okay? Verse 29. Thou wilt do us no hurt, as we have not touched thee, and as we have done nothing unto thee but good, and have sent thee away in peace, thou art now blessed of Yahweh. And he made them a feast, and did drink and eat. And they rose up betimes in the morning, and swear one to another. Again, they made an oath. I don't believe they were swearing. And Isaac sent them away, and they departed from him in peace. Again, Isaac's making peace, and so is Abimelech. Verse 32, and it came to pass the same day that Isaac's servants came and told him concerning the well which they had digged, and said unto him, we have found water. And he called it Shebeth. Therefore the name of this city is Beersheba unto this day. And Esau was 40 years old when he took a wife, Judith, of the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and of Bashmath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, which were a grief of mind to Isaac and Rebekah. End of that chapter. Genesis chapter 27. Now, we're going to start seeing more and more of why this mixing of seed is so important. Okay? Because we just read in verses 34 and 35 of chapter 26 in Genesis that Esau just broke the father's commandments, and he's not going in the way of his father. He's going the opposite way. Not only that, he despised his birthright. Okay, and we're going to see him whining and crying about this later. Again, I'm speaking of Esau, which is the twin brother of Isaac. So I can say that he's a whiny little turd about all of this, as he was. Verse 27, or chapter 27, verse 1. And it came to pass that when Isaac was old, he was 137 years old, and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, he called Esau his eldest son, and said unto him, my son. He said unto him, behold, here I am. And he said, behold, now I am old, and I know not the day of my death. Now therefore, take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver, and thy bow. Again, we're seeing the same thing running through these families. The bow and arrow, one's a tent, one's a man that dwells in a tent, and one's a man that's a hunter. And go into the field and take me some venison, some deer, and make a savory meat such as I love, and bring it into me, that I may eat, and that my soul may bless thee before I die. And Rebekah heard when Isaac spake to Esau his son, And Esau went to the field to hunt for venison and to bring it. And Rebekah spake unto Jacob her son, saying, Behold, I heard thy father speak unto Esau thy brother, saying, Bring me venison, and make me savory meat, that I may eat, and that I may bless thee before Yahweh before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice according to which I command thee. Now remember, Isaac is well stricken and bedridden at this part of his life. Rebekah just heard this conversation take place. And Rebekah knows better because of Esau's sons. Okay? Now, also keep in mind, Isaac was loved by Rebekah, and Esau has already sold his birthright. And it was not Yahweh's plan that Esau should have this birthright. And if it was, Yahweh would have intervened, as we're going to read. So let's go to Malachi chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. The burden of the word of Yahweh to Israel by Malachi. I have loved you, saith Yahweh, yet you say, Wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith Yahweh, yet I loved Jacob. Verse 3, And I hated Esau, and I laid his mountains a heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Verse 4, Whereas Edom saith, We are impoverished, but we will return to build the desolate places. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, They shall build, but I will throw down. And they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom Yahweh hath indignation forever. All right, back to Genesis 27, verse 9. Go now this is, again, the mother talking to the son. Go now to the flock and fetch me from thence 2 good kids of the goats. Again, notice she says goats. He just asked for venison. If we go into Leviticus, we know what the goats are. Okay? And make them some savory meat for thy father, such as he loveth. And Jacob shall bring it into thy father, that he may eat, and that he may bless thee before his death. And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, Behold, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. My father, peradventure, will feel me, and he shall seem to him and I shall seem to him as a deceiver, and I shall bring a curse upon me, and not a blessing. And his mother said unto him, Upon me be thy curse, my son. Only obey my voice, and go fetch me them. And he went and fetched and brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory meat, such as his father loved. And Rebekah took a goodly raiment of her eldest son Esau. And again, Esau would have had more than one way of dressing. Again, he was the eldest. He would have had a double portion of everything his father had, which were with her in the house, and she put them upon Jacob, her younger son. And she put on the skins of the kids of the goats upon his hands, and upon his the smooth of his neck. And she gave Jacob savory meat and the bread, and she prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. And he came unto his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here I am. Who art thou, my son? And Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau, thy firstborn. I have done accordingly, as thou badest me. Arise, I pray thee, and sit and eat of thy venison, and that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac said unto his son, How is it that thou found me so quickly, my son? And he said, Because Yahweh thy Elohim brought it to me. Verse 21, And Isaac said unto Jacob, Come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee, my son, whether thou be my son Esau or not. Verse 22, And Jacob went near Isaac, his father, and felt him. And he said, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. Now, again, let's look at Leviticus chapter 16, verses 7 through 9. Starting in verse, Actually, I'm not going to go there. You guys, I've already read that several times. You guys know exactly what's going on in Leviticus 16:19. You guys see that they're atoning for the sin of mixing seed, and they're sending out a goat, and goat means devil, and it also means Azazel. Now, Azazel, if you're familiar with Azazel, then you know what was taking place in Genesis chapter 6, and you know the atonement that they were making. Now, picking back up in verse 23. And he discerned him not, because his hands were hairy, and his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. And he said, Art thou my very son Esau? And he said, I am. And he said, Bring it near to me, and I will eat of it my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. And he brought it near, and he did eat, and brought him wine, and he drank. And his father Isaac said unto him, Come near now, and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his raiment. And he blessed him, and he said, See, the smell of my son, and the smell of the field, which Yahweh hath blessed. Therefore Yahweh give thee of the dew of heaven, and of the fatness of the earth, and the plenty of the corn, and of the wine. Verse 29. Let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. Be master over them, and over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be anyone that cursed thee, and blessed be anybody that blesses thee. And it came to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an ending of the blessing of Jacob, and Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother has come in from hunting. And he also made savory meat, and brought it into his father, and said unto his father, Let my father arise, and eat of my son's venison, that thy soul will bless me. And Isaac his father said unto him, Who art thou? And he said, I am thy son, thy firstborn Esau, the one that sold his birthright. Verse 33. And Isaac trembled very exceedingly, and said, Who? Where is he that hath taken the venison, and brought it to me? And I have eaten all of this before thou camest, and have blessed him. Yea, and he shall be blessed. Verse 34. And when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried, great and exceedingly bitter cry. Poor Esau. And he said unto his father, Bless me, even me also, O my father. Okay, verse 35. And he said, Thy brother came in with subtlety, and hath taken away thy blessing. And he said, Is it not rightly named Jacob? Like, how could this happen? And the father says, For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright. He didn't take it away. Esau sold his birthright and despised it. And behold, now he hath taken away my blessing. And he has said, Hast thou not reserved a blessing for me? Again, this is why Yahweh hated Esau. Verse 37. And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, Behold, I have made him thy master, and all his brethren have I given him for servants, and with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son? Verse 38. And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father, as Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Now, he's not crying to the father. He's crying to his father Jacob, okay? And can a blessing come from one who doesn't obey Yahweh? Because that's not going to happen. So far we've read, Yahweh will not allow this. Verse 39. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and the dew of the heaven from above. Verse 40. And by thy sword shall thou live, and thou shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass that when thou shalt have dominion, thou shalt break the yoke from off thy neck. Verse 41. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, The days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. So not only did he sell his birthright, not only is he crying to his father instead of doing what Yahweh told them to do and living the way that they lived, the way that Abraham lived, the way that Isaac lived, and the way that his brother Jacob is living, okay? He decided to mix seed and go out into other nations, sell his birthright, and to do things the opposite. And the mother knew this, again. And these are the words which Esau, the elder son, were told of Rebekah. And she sent and called for Jacob her younger son, and said unto him, Behold, thy brother Esau, as touching thee, doeth comfort himself in purposing to unalive thee. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice, arise, flee thou to Laban, my brother, to Haran. Now let's not forget that we just read about Laban, Rebekah's brother, who is now, we're going to now see another interaction with this Laban fella. Verse 44, and tarry with him a few days until thy brother's fury turn away. Now it's going to take more than a few days. 45, until thy brother's anger is turned away from thee, and forget that thou hast done, and he forget that thou hast done unto him. Then I will send and fetch thee from thence. Why should I be deprived also of you both in one day? Now, listen to this next statement that Rebekah is going to make. And Rebekah said unto Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. Who did Esau marry? The Hittites. We just read about it in the chapter prior. Now, this is a statement that Rebekah is making. I am wearied. She's worried about her life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob take a wife of the daughters of Heth, such are these which are the daughters of the land. What good shall my life do me? So Isaac is so far gone in age that he's ready to die. He's no longer able mentally to keep the charge that he once kept, which he once knew, that he once learned from his father Abraham. So we see Rebekah takes the charge, and we see that in many places in Scripture. There's a few different places where women have to step up and take the charge for the men. And they even sometimes have to go to war and fight because the men are not being men. They're too afraid of fitting in with the world, too afraid of offending someone, instead of preaching the truth, which is what we're doing. Genesis 28, verse 1. Now listen to the change of tune. And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him, and charged him, and said unto him, Thou shalt not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Pandamarim, the house of Bethel, thy mother's father, and take thee a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. And Yahweh Almighty bless thee, and make thee fruitful, and multiply thee, that thou mayest be a multitude of people. And he give thee a blessing of Abraham to thee, and to thy seed, and with thee, and thou mayest inherit the land wherein thou art a stranger, which Yahweh gave unto Abraham. Verse 5, And Isaac sent away Jacob, and he went to Pandamaran, unto Laban, son of Bethuel, the Syrian, that's where he lived again, Syria, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob, and Esau's mother. When Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Pandamaran to take a wife from thence, and that he blessed him and gave him charge, saying, Thou shalt not take of the wives of the daughters of Canaan, that Jacob obeyed his father and his mother, and was gone to Pandamaram. And Esau, seeing that the daughters of Canaan pleased not Isaac his father. Okay? It's just made it very clear. Okay? And Jacob went out to Beersheba and went towards Haran. And he lighted up a certain place and tarried there all night, because the sun was set. And he took up stones of that place and put them for pillows, and laid down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed a dream, and behold, a ladder was set up on the earth, and to the top of it it reached to heaven, and behold, the angels of Yahweh ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Elohim stood above, Yahweh stood above, and said, I am the Elohim, Yahweh of Abraham thy father, and the Elohim of Isaac. The land wherein thou liest, to thee I will give it, and to thy seed. And thy seed shall be the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south. And thee, and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. It's crazy how we keep seeing this over and over again. Verse 16, and Jacob awakes out of his sleep, and he said, surely the Elohim, Yahweh, is in this place, and I knew it not. And he was afraid and said, how dreadful is this place? This is none other but the house of Yahweh, and the gate of heaven. And Jacob rose up early in the morning, and took the stone that he had put for pillows, and set him up for a pillar, and poured oil upon the top of it. Remember I told you to remember the oil? This is that oil. This is the oil of the people of Israel that they anoint everything with. Verse 19, and he called the name of the place Bethel, not Bethel, Bethel. But the name of the city was called Luz at first. Remember, we read through this earlier. And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, if Yahweh be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I should come again to my father's house in peace, then shall Yahweh be my Elohim. Verse 22, and this stone which I have set for a pillar shall be Yahweh's house, and all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give thee 1/10 unto thee. All right, Genesis chapter 29. Verse 1. Then Jacob went on his journey and came into the land of the people of the east. And he looked, and behold, a well in the field, and lo, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of the well they watered their flocks. A great stone was upon the well's mouth. Now, this should give you a good idea of how strong these men were in this day. Verse 3, and thither were all the flocks gathered, and they rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered the sheep, and put a stone upon it again on the well's mouth in his place. Now, the people of this land, as we spoke about before, they have rights to this well, and they're covering this well on purpose. Okay? Verse 4, and Jacob said unto them, my brethren, whence be ye? And they said, of Haran are we. And he said unto them, know ye Laban the son of Nahor? And they said, we know him. And he said unto them, is he well? And they said, he is well. And behold, Rachel his daughter cometh with sheep. So he looks up and sees Rachel. And he said, lo, is it yet high day? Neither is it time that cattle should be gathered together. Water ye the sheep, and go feed them. So this is showing that Jacob knew what he was doing when it came to the watering of the flock and keeping of the field and the sheep, right? He was a farmer. And they said, we cannot until the flocks be gathered together, until they roll the stone from the well's mouth, then we can water the sheep. Verse 9, and while he yet spake with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she kept them. And it came to pass, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban's mother's brother. Now, this man just took what it took 4 or 5 men to do. He just moved this stone by himself. He wasn't new to this, guys. This was nothing new for him. Verse 11, and Jacob kissed Rachel, and lifted up his voice and wept. Verse 12, and Jacob told Rachel that he was his father's brother, and that he was Rebekah's son, and she ran and told her father. And it came to pass, when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him, and embraced him, and kissed him, and brought him to the house. And he told Laban all of these things. Remember, this is the same Laban that was cool with Rebekah just leaving because, the servant came with all of this gold and decked Laban and his family out and made them rich. Now watch what happens with Jacob. Verse 14, and Laban said unto him, surely thou art bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. Where have we read that? Genesis chapter 2. And he abode with him for the space of a month. And Laban said unto Jacob, because thou art my brother, shouldest thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall be thy wages? And verse 16, and Laban had 2 daughters, and the name of the elder was Leah. Leah means to be weak-eyed or tender-eyed, meaning she wasn't as pretty as Rachel, to put it lightly. Weak to the eye. And the name of the younger was Rachel. Rachel, her name means little lamb. Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. Verse 18, and Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, I will serve thee for 7 years. Now this is what would take place back in this time. This is when we refer to the 144 being bought free. Well, if your time or your work was finished before that 7 years came, that means you were bought free. Okay, so you're redeemed before your time. This is the 144. They will be redeemed before the rest of the remnant of Israel is redeemed. Okay, verse 19. And Laban said, is it better that I give her to thee than that I should give her to another man abideth with me? And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days, for he loved her. For the love he had for her. Sorry. So the time flew by because the 7 years went by pretty quickly because he was waiting for Rachel. Okay? Verse 21. And Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go into her. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. And it came to pass in evening that he took of Leah his daughter, and he brought her to him, and he went into her. So Jacob, it's late evening, it's nighttime, and they would go in wearing veils. And again, the room more than likely was dark, and that's the way that it was set up by Laban. And Jacob doesn't understand what's going on yet, that Laban just tricked him. And Laban gathered together all the men for the place, and they made a feast. And it came to pass at evening that Leah his daughter, and he brought her to him, and he went in unto her. And Laban gave his daughter Leah Zilpah his maid for a handmaiden. And Zilpah means a trickling. Okay? And it came to pass in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, what is this that thou hast done to me? Now, stop for a second. Let's think about something. What did Jacob do to his brother Esau? He tricked him, right, out of his birthright. So now what's taking place to Jacob? He was tricked out of his wife. Okay? Everything with the Father is fair all the time. There is no unjustness in our Father. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. That is the law of the Torah, and Yahweh will not change it for anyone. Okay, so you see that Abraham started off righteous, but as we start going down, we see them slipping away more and more and more and more until they're completely whoring around and playing the harlot. This is why Yahweh gave us a bill of divorcement. Now, I hope everything that we've talked about before is starting to come to mind, because again, when you see the beauty that's in just this book alone, just the book of Genesis, the love for our Father shall grow more and more and more, because you will see in every book it's the same story over and over again. What is this that thou hast done to me? Did I not serve for thee for Rachel? Wherefore hast thou beguiled me? Verse 20, Genesis 27, verse 26, Genesis 27. And Laban said, it must be done so in our country to give our younger before the firstborn. Fulfill her week, meaning there was a week set aside for them to be on like a honeymoon, okay, like the honeymoon phase. And we will give thee also for the service which thou hast served with me yet 7 other years. And Jacob did so and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel to be his daughter. So he didn't have to wait 7 years before he got Rachel, but he has to work another 7 years for Rachel. That was the deal. So Laban's smart. He knows what he's doing. Verse 29, and Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah, his handmaiden, to be her maid. So this is to deliver children. And Bilhah, again, these are all from the same bloodline. They're all from Laban's family, Bilhah and Zilpah. And Bilhah means bashful or timid. Verse 30, and he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet another 7 years. And when Yahweh saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Now again, I believe that this word hated is not a good word. I don't believe that he ever hated her, because again, he treated both of them very fairly. You don't see him treating either one differently. Now, this is the beginning of the 12 patriarchs, okay? This will make up the 12 tribes of Israel. Verse 32, and Leah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben, and that means, behold, a son. For she said, surely Yahweh hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. Verse 33, and she conceived again and bare a son, and said, because Yahweh hath heard that I was hated, he has henceforth given me another son also, which is called Simeon. Simeon means Yah hearing, or Yah has heard. Verse 34, and she conceived again and bare a son, and said, now this time my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. Levi means has joined. Again, notice that these are 2 by 2 by 2. They're happening 2 by 2. And she conceived again and bare a son, and she said, now I praise Yahweh. Therefore she called his name Judah, which means praise, and left bearing. Okay, now Judah is the line of our Messiah. Okay, but Judah did some pretty stupid things, as we're going to read. All right, moving into Genesis chapter 30. All right, and when Rachel saw that she could bear Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister, and said unto Jacob, give me children, or else I die. This is how Jacob responds. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, am I the Elohim instead, who hath withheld thee from the fruit of thy womb? Am I the one that's closed up your womb, woman? Are you crazy? Verse 3, and she said, behold, my maid Bilhah, go into her, that she may bear unto me upon my knees, that I may also have children by her. And she gave him Bilhah, her handmaiden, to wife. And Jacob went into her. Now Jacob's got his hands full. He's got 4 women to deal with, and he has to treat all of them equally. Verse 5, and Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son. Verse 6, and Rachel said, Yahweh hath judged me, and hath heard my voice, and hath given me a son. Therefore she called his name Dan, which means judging, or to judge. And Bilhah, Rachel's maid, again conceived, 2 by 2, and bare Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, with great wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali, which means my wrestling. When Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zilpah her maid and gave her Jacob to wife. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a son. And Leah said, A troop cometh, and his name is called Gad, meaning a troop. Verse 12, And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a second son, back to back. And Leah said, Happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed. And she called his name Asher, which means happy. Verse 14, And Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest, and found mandrakes in the field, and brought them unto his mother Leah. Now, I'm not going to talk about what this means, but I'm not going to be able to talk about this on TikTok. Then Rachel said unto Leah, Give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes. And she said unto her, Is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband? And wouldest thou takest away my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, Therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes. So Jacob's not complaining, right? Jacob's doing whatever the women are saying to do, but Jacob's also working like an animal for Laban, as we're going to read. And Jacob came out into the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him, and she said, Thou must come unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes. And he lay with her that night. Now, this had nothing to do with the mandrakes, okay? What's about to happen? This is the hand of Yahweh, and for a reason. Verse 17, And Yahweh hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived and bare Jacob a fifth son. And Leah said, Yahweh hath given me hire, because I have given of my maiden to my husband. And she called his name Issachar, which is my hire. And Leah conceived again and bare Jacob a sixth son, back to back. And Leah said, Yahweh hath endured with me a goodly dowry, and now my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. And she called his name Zebulun, which means dwelling or to dwell. Verse 21, And afterward she bare a daughter, and called her name Dinah. Now remember, this is the same Dinah who is going to be ravished and taken by Hamor and Shechem, the Hivite princes. He's going to defile Dinah, which means to grape her. And Dinah means vindication or judgment, and that's exactly what comes upon the Hivite people after they do this, because they will slay all of them by the sword. Verse 22, And Yahweh remembered Rachel, and Yahweh hearkened unto her, and opened her womb. And Yahweh, I just read that, and she conceived and bare a son. Now remember what we just read. Yahweh remembered Rachel, not because of the mandrakes, and Yahweh hearkened to her and opened her womb. This is the first child that will be born of Rachel. And she conceived and bare a son, and said, Yahweh hath taken away my reproach. And she called the name of his son Joseph. Now remember what Joseph does. Remember, hopefully we'll be able to get into what Joseph does. And Joseph means adding. And said, Yahweh shall add to me another son. Note, Benjamin, who would be born in Bethlehem, he hasn't been born yet, the same place where Yeshua would be born later on in this story. Rachel would name the child Ben-Ammi, okay? And we see that Jacob will rename the child Benjamin. But this also is where Rachel will die, giving birth. Verse 25, And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, Send me away, that I may go into my own place, into my own country. Verse 26, Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go, for thou knowest my service which I have done thee. Now remember, Laban didn't have a whole lot before meeting, number one, Abraham. And then number two, now for the second time, we see that Jacob is in the land of Laban. And Laban, again, is, I hate to say it, but he's more about money, and he's pretty much selling his daughters. Now, and also Laban becomes blessed because of Jacob's hands and Jacob's doings, right? Verse 28, And he said, Appoint me thy wages, and I will give it. And he said unto him, Thou knowest how I have served thee, and how thy cattle was with me. For it was little which thou hadst before I came, and now has increased unto a multitude. And Yahweh hath blessed thee since my coming. And now, when shall I provide for my own house also? And he said, What shall I give thee? And Jacob said, Thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep my flock. And it came to pass through all the flock of the day, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle. This is Jacob making a deal with him, right? And the deal is this. He's going to remove all the speckled and spotted cattle from Laban's sheep, right? And all the speckled goats. And such shall be for his hire. Okay, so he's going to take all of the perfect ones and give them to Laban, but he's going to take all the bad ones for himself. And watch what the father does. Verse 33, So shall my righteousness answer for me in the time to come, when it shall come for my hire before thy face. Every one that is not speckled or spotted amongst the goats, and brown amongst the sheep, that shall be counted stolen with me. Okay? And Laban said, Behold, I would it might be according to thy word. So he's agreeing. And he removed that same day, Laban removed that same day, the goats that were ring-shanked, the spotted, the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, and all the brown amongst the sheep, and gave them into the hands of his sons. And he set 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob. 3 days' trip. He didn't want his flock anywhere near Jacob's flock, because he didn't want him to succeed. And Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. And Jacob took him rods of green poplar, and of hazel, and of chestnut tree, and pilled it white with strakes in them. And he made the white appear which was in the rods, and he set the rods which he had piled before the flocks in the gutters of the watering troughs, when the flocks came in to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. So he's taken these. It has nothing to do with the wood, right? It's all about the father giving him this idea, right? And he takes these stakes and he herds the sheep into where they would drink. And when they would go into drink, when they were close to being in heat, as they were drinking, that's where they would mate. And this wasn't just an idea Jacob came up with, but it did work, however. Let's see. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth cattle, ring-shacked, speckled, and spotted. Verse 40. And Jacob did separate the lambs, and set the faces of the flocks toward the ring-shank, and the brown of the flock of Laban, and he put his own flocks by themselves, and put them not unto Laban's cattle. And it came to pass, whensoever the strong cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, that they might conceive amongst the rods. But when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger were Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly, and had much cattle, and maidservants, and men servants, and camels, and asses. Jacob was just blessed exceedingly. Okay? Now we're in Genesis chapter 31, but I have to take a quick break. So if you guys don't mind waiting, or if you want me to restart the live, I don't mind picking up and reading a little bit further, because this is going to get very interesting. And I want you guys to understand where the idea came from that Jacob just got, because it wasn't his own idea. It was given to him of the father to do this. So I want people to understand that Laban's been taking advantage of Jacob all of this time. And Jacob has done nothing but continue on blessing Laban. And the only reason Laban's being blessed is because of the work of Jacob's hands, because Jacob is blessed. And this is the promise. Remember, before he went to Laban, he had a dream, and he saw this ladder of the Messiah, angels ascending and descending upon him. Remember, that came into fruition on Mount Hermon when the transfiguration took place, when the Messiah and Moses and Elijah stand there and they're transfigured before the disciples. And then they hear this voice out of heaven, the Father saying, "This is my Son, hear him." Again, this is how people would come in different spirits, like the spirit of Elijah or the spirit of John, all of these things, right? So he's already blessed. Now he's helping Laban, and he's done more. He's already worked 14 plus years, and it's about to come to an end. So give me one quick second, guys. I gotta grab a drink and run to the restroom really quickly. Okay, Genesis chapter 31, starting in verse 1. And it says, "And he heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's." So now the sons are complaining. Laban's sons are saying, Jacob has taken everything, even though Jacob has just worked, again, 14 plus years. He served his time for both of Laban's daughters, which are rightfully his because he's married. And it says very clearly that when a man leaves his father and mother, that he's to cleave to his wife. Okay? And that's not what happened. Laban's trying to keep Jacob here and hold him captive because it's making him rich. Verse 2, "And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not towards him as before." So now Jacob's starting to fear that Laban and his sons might do something to him. "And Yahweh said unto Jacob, Return unto the land of thy fathers and thy kindred, and I will be with thee. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flock." Okay, so now this is becoming a private matter. Verse 5, "And he said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not towards me as before, but the Elohim of my father has been with me. And you know that with all of my power I have served your father." Verse 7, "And your father has deceived me and has changed my wages 10 times. But Yahweh hath suffered him not to hurt me." Verse 8, If he said thus, the speckled shall be thy wages, then all the cattle are bare speckled. And if he said thus, the ring shanked shall be for thy hire, then the bare, all the cattle are ring shanked. Verse 9, "Thus Yahweh hath taken away the cattle of your father and given them to me. And it came to pass that at the time the cattle conceived, that I lifted up my eyes, and I saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring-shanked and speckled and grizzled. And the angel of Yahweh spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here I am. And he said, Lift up now thine eyes, and see all the rams which leap upon the cattle that are ring-shanked and speckled and grizzled. For I have seen all that Laban doeth unto thee, and I am the Elohim of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowest a vow unto me. Now arise, and get thee out of the midst of the land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet any portion of inheritance for us in our father's house? So they know. The daughters know that Laban has sold them for money, and that there's nothing being given to them for this. Verse 15, Are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us, and he hath devoured also our money. Verse 16, For all the riches which Yahweh hath taken from our father, that is ours, and our children's. Now, then, whatsoever Yahweh hath said unto thee, do. So they're in agreement with him. They're now in agreement with their husband, which is how it should be. Verse 17, Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon camels, and he carried away all of his cattle and all of his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting, which he had gotten in Pandamaram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. Now her father's images, Laban was not a worshiper of Yahweh. Laban worshipped the heathen gods, unfortunately. And all of Laban's heathen statues and stuff were gold and silver. And the daughters wanted their inheritance, which Laban had sold away. And Jacob stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian, and in that he told him not that he fled. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river and set his face toward Mount Gilead. Again, remember these places. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled. Remember, they were 3 days apart, and Laban was having his sons go back and forth between this 3 days journey. So Jacob had a 3-day head start. And he took his brethren with him and pursued after him 7 days' journey, and they overtook him in Mount Gilead. And Yahweh came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night, and he said unto him, Take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. And Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount of Laban, with his brethren had pitched in the mount of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, What hast thou done, that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captives, and taken them with the sword? Now, Laban's lying. All right? Laban's just flat out lying about what Jacob did. And Yahweh just warned Laban not to be doing this, good or bad, not to even approach him. But what does Laban do? Verse 27, Wherefore did thou flee away secretly and steal away from me, and not tell me, that I might have sent thee away with mirth and with songs and with tabret and with harp? Like he would have done that. And has not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Again, these are not his sons and daughters. These are Jacob's sons and daughters. Thou hast now done foolishly in doing so. Verse 29. It is in thy power of my hand to do you hurt. But Yahweh of your father spake unto me last night, saying, Take thou heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. Verse 30. And now, though thou wouldest need be gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? This is what it boils down to, guys. Laban's upset because Laban doesn't have his gods, which are made out of gold and silver. And Jacob answered and said unto Laban, Because I was afraid, for I said, Peradventure thou would takest by force thy daughters from me. With whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live. Before our brethren discern thou what is in thine with me, and take it to thee. For Jacob kneweth not that Rachel had stolen them from Laban. So these are Laban's teraphim, his gods. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, and he went into Leah's tent, and he went into the 2 maidservants' tents, but he found them not. Then he went out of Leah's tent, and he entered into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the images and put them in the camel's furniture, and sat upon them, and that is the saddle, the camel's saddle. And Laban searched all the tent, but found them not. And she said to her father, Let it not displease me, my master, that I cannot rise up before thee, for it is the custom of a woman is upon me. And he searched and found not the images. So she's saying it was her time of the month, and that she couldn't rise up, and again, that would have he couldn't touch her. That would make him unclean. Well, I don't necessarily know if that would apply to him, but nonetheless, he falls for this, right? 36. And Jacob was wroth and chode with Laban. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, What is my trespass? What is my sin that thou hast hostily pursued after me? And whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, and thou hast not found of thy household stuff, set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, and let them judge betwixt both of us. This 20 years I have been with thee. 20 years. Thy ewes and thy goats have not cast their young, and the rams of thy flocks have I not eaten. That which was torn of the beast I brought not unto thee, but I bear the loss of it. He's talking to Laban. He's pissed. Of my hand didst thou require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was in the day drought. The drought consumed me. So the heat by day consumed him, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes for 20 years. Okay, verse 41. Thus I have been 20 years in thy house, and I have served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, and 6 years for thy cattle. And thou hast changed my wages 10 times. 42. Except the Elohim of my father and the Elohim of Abraham and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely thou wouldest sent me away now empty. Yahweh hath seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked thee last night. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, These daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do to thee this day, and these my daughters, or unto their children which they have been born? None of this belonged to Laban. Not one thing that he just mentioned belonged to him. Verse 44. Now therefore, come thou, let us make a covenant. This is Laban's way. And thou and I, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone and set it for a pillar. They're setting a border. They're setting a line that is not to be crossed. Verse 46. And Jacob said unto his brethren, Gather stones. And they took up stones and made a heap. And they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it Jergashadua, something like that, meaning Chaldean. But Jacob called it Galeed. So in the Jergashta is the Chaldean language, and Jacob is saying the same thing, only in Hebrew. It means a witness or a heap. Verse 48. And Laban said, This heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Galeed. And mitzvah, to keep apart. That's what mitzvah means, to keep apart. For he said, the Elohim watch between me and thee when we are absent from one another. If thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take other wives besides my daughters, no man is with us. See, Yahweh is a witness betwixt me and thee. Verse 51. And Laban said to Jacob, Behold this heap, and behold this pillar, which I have cast betwixt me and thee. This heap will be for a witness, and this pillar will be a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to thee, and thou shalt not pass over this heap and a pillar unto me for harm. So they can still visit one another, but this was between them and between Yahweh as a witness, that they wouldn't pass over into each other's land to do one another harm. Verse 53. And the Elohim of Abraham and the Elohim of Nahor, again, this is between the two houses, and the Elohim of their father judge betwixt us. And Jacob sware by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice upon the mount, and Jacob called his brethren to eat bread. And they did eat bread and tarried all night on the mount. And early in the morning Laban rose up and kissed his sons and daughters and blessed them. And Laban departed and returned to his place. So they just dodged a whole bunch of nonsense. And Jacob had enough, rightfully so. After 20 years, he just set Laban straight. And he did it by the hands of Yahweh, our Father. All right, let's see here. Where are we at? Genesis chapter 32. And Jacob went on his way, and the angels of Yahweh met him. This is the same place where he saw the ladder. And when Jacob saw them, he said, Is this the Elohim of hosts? And he called his name, and he called the name of that place Mahanim. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother unto the land of Seir, Seir meaning hairy, to the country of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, Thus shall you speak unto my master Esau. Again, Esau is not his master, but again, watch the temperament and the way that these two interact. Thy servant Jacob said thus, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now, 20 years later. I have oxen and asses and flocks and men servants and women servants, and I have sent to tell my master that I might find grace in thy sight. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to thy brother Esau, and he cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him. Now, the reason Jacob is sending people to warn Esau is to let Esau know that he's coming back into the land. Now, Jacob has his entire family with him, and just his family and his servants, okay? Aside from that, he cannot go up against 400 men. Verse 7, Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that was with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels, into 2 bands. And he said, If Esau come to one of the company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. And Jacob said, O the Elohim of my father Abraham, the Elohim of my father Isaac, and the master which saith unto me, Return unto thy country, speaking of the angel, and thy kindred, and I will dwell with thee. I am not worthy of the least of all mercies, and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become 2 bands. Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. For I fear him, lest he will come and smite me, and the mother with my children. So I'm sure he's a little worried here that 400 men are coming, but his concern is for Rachel. Okay? And he said, And thou sayest, I will surely do thee good, and make thee thy seed the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. Verse 13, And he lodged there the same night, and took of which came to his hand to present for Esau his brother 200 she-goats, and 20 he-goats, and 200 ewes, and 20 rams, 30 milk camels and their colts, 40 kine and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses and 10 foals, and he delivered them in the hand of his servant, and every drove by themselves. And he said unto his servants, Pass over before me, and put space betwixt, and drove and drove. So he's sending little by little, right? He's trying to soften his brother up a bit, because his brother's coming with 400 men. And so he's sending droves of people with all of these animals as a gift to his brother for peace. And again, he's truly doesn't have to do this. He's not in Esau's debt, and Esau's not his master. Verse 17, And he commanded the foremost, saying, When Esau my brother meeteth thee, and asketh thee, saying, Whose art thou, and whither goest thou, and whose are those before thee? Then thou shalt say, They be thy servant Jacob's. It is a present sent unto my master Esau, and behold, also he is behind us. And he commanded he the second and the third that followed the drove, saying, On this manner shall you speak unto Esau when you find him. And say ye, moreover, Behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with a present that goeth before me, and afterward I will see his face, and peradventure he will accept of me. So went forth the presents over before him, and he lodged that night in the company. And he rose up that night, and took his 2 wives, and his 2 women servants, and his 11 sons, and passed over the ford of Jabbok. And he took them and sent them over the brook, and sent them over all that he had. And Jacob was left alone, and there he wrestled with the man until the breaking of day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, the angel that he's wrestling with, he touched the hollow of his thigh. Now, it's not that Jacob was stronger than the angel, because the angel's about to touch the hollow of Jacob's thigh and put it out of joint. He's just touching him, okay? And the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint, and he wrestled with him. So, question, was Jacob afraid of his brother Esau? I don't think so. He's wrestling with our Messiah. All right, now, let's look at Hosea chapter 12, verses 3 through 5. It says, he took his brother by the heel in the womb, and by the strength that he had, the power with Yahweh. Yea, he had the power over the angel and prevailed. He wept and made much supplication unto him. And he found him in Bethel. And there he spake with us. Even the Elohim, Yahweh of hosts, the master is his memorial. Speaking of, again, the angel. So, in my opinion, I would say, of course, he's not worried in the least bit about fighting his brother Esau, because he's wrestling an angel. All right, continuing on. Verse 26. And he said, the angel said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, Jacob said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. So he's wrestling with this angel for what? To have victory and power, and so that his brother doesn't come and unalive him. Okay? Verse 27. And he said unto him, what is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And the angel said, the man that he's wrestling with, thy name shall no more be called Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with Yahweh and with men, and has prevailed. So we're seeing again the obedience. Yahweh told Jacob to pick up all that he had and move. He saw that Laban was afflicting him, and now he's wrestled with the Messiah. And again, he was blessed by Yahweh. From even into the book of Hosea, we see this, and this is way further along in Scripture. We see that this is something that's being mentioned by the prophets. Verse 29, and Jacob asked him and said, tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, wherefore is it thou doest ask after my name? Again, Jacob wanted to know who this was that he was wrestling with. And we see this a lot. When they're asking for the name of this particular angel, he never gives it, right? He even says in one point, wherefore do you ask after my name, seeing that it is a secret? Verse 30, and Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, which means the face of El. For I have seen Yahweh face to face, and my life is preserved. Now again, we know he didn't see Yahweh. We know he was wrestling with a man. And as he passed over Peniel, the sun rose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh, meaning he was still limping. His thigh was pretty jacked. Verse 32, therefore the children of Israel eat not the sinew which shrank, which is upon the hollow of the thigh, upon this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh, and the sinew shrank. That's why he's limping. He has a limp now, permanent limp. Genesis chapter 33, verse 1. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men, and he divided the children. Now listen to how he divides the children. This shows his love for Rachel. He divided the children unto Leah, and unto Rachel, and unto the two handmaidens. He put the handmaids and their children foremost, first, and Leah and her children after, and Joseph in the hindermost. So Joseph is with them, being protected in the back. And he passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times, the number of completion, until he came near his brother. And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Verse 5, and he lifted up his eyes, and he saw the woman and the children, and he said, Who are these with thee? And he said, The children which Yahweh hath graciously given thy servant. Still calling him a servant. Then the handmaidens came near, and they and their children, and they bowed themselves. And Leah also with her children came near and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near, and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. And he said, What meanest thou by all this drove which I met? Why did you send all these animals? And he said, These are to find grace in the sight of my master. Again, calling him master. And Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep thou that thou hast unto thyself. Verse 10, and Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if thou have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face, as though I had seen the face of Yahweh, and thou wast pleased with me. Take thee, I pray thee, my blessing, that is brought to thee, because Yahweh hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. And he said, Let us make a journey, and let us go, and we will go before thee. So Esau is offering now, because he knows that Jacob and his family are alone. Esau is now offering to go before Jacob, because they're going to the same place. But listen to Jacob's response. And he said to him, My master knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and herds with the young are with me. And if the men shall override one day, all the flock will die. Let my master, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly, according as the cattle that goeth before me, and the children are able to endure, until I come unto my master, unto Seir. Harry, again. And Esau said, Let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me. And he said, What needeth it? Let me find grace in your sight, my master. So he's trying not to insult Esau. Jacob's trying not to insult his brother Esau. Esau's doing his best to even offer to leave men with them to keep them protected. But Jacob knows this just not a good idea. So Esau returned that day on his way unto Seir. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and built him a house, and made booths for his cattle. Therefore the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob came to Salem, the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he had came to Pandamaram, and pitched his tent before the city. And he bought a parcel of land, where he spread his tent, at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money, or 100 pieces of, I don't know what type of coin they were using in this land. And he erected there an altar and called it Elioth Israel. Again, so we see out of all that he just went through, he's thanking the Father again. He's making an altar. Now, this is the lineage of Judah and the correction of the offspring. Now, remember I told you Judah did some stupid stuff, okay? And Judah nearly compromised the seed, and Judah paid dearly for this. Genesis chapter 38. Man, I can't believe we've got through all this. And it came to pass at that time that Judah went down from his brethren, and turned into a certain Adulamite, whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua, which means wealth. And this is why his eyes were on her. She was wealthy. And he took her and went into her. And she conceived and bare a son, and he called his name which means watchful. And he conceived again and bare a son, and called his name Onan, which means strong. And she yet conceived again and bare a son, and called his name Shelah, which means a petition. And he was at Shezbaz, which is means lying or falsehood, when she bare him. And Judah took a wife for Er, his firstborn, whose name was Tamar, which means palm tree. Now, Tamar is of the lineage. However, Judah just took a daughter of the Canaanite women. He just mixed seed. Watch what happens. And Er, Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of Yahweh, and Yahweh slew him. I don't know, for 1 second, if anybody is still not convinced that Yahweh will not have mixing of seed, especially in the patriarchs, then I don't know what's going to convince people. Verse 8, and Judah said unto Onan, go into thy brother's wife, and marry her, and raise up seed to thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his. Why would he know this? Because they knew the customs of the Hebrew people. But Judah wasn't paying attention to this. Judah didn't care. Judah does get corrected, and Judah eventually gets his act together for the most part. However, we're seeing that he's about to be strongly corrected for this. And it came to pass, Judah just told his other son to go in and take a seed which is not, or take a wife which is not his. And he went into his brother's wife, and he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give her seed to his brother. Verse 10, and the thing which he did displeased Yahweh, wherefore he slew him also. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow, basically, is what he's telling her to do. Remain a widow at thy father's house till Salah my son be grown. For he said, lest peradventure he die also, as his brethren did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. So here Judah is treating Tamar harshly and trying to keep her a widow until the older child is risen up. Now watch what Tamar does. In the process of time, the daughter of Shula, Judah's wife, died, and Judah was comforted. And when he went up to the sheep shearers, again, this is written in your Bible, sheep shearers, okay? These are those who mix seed, to Timnath and his friend Gerar the Adulamite. And he told Tamar, saying, behold, thy father-in-law goeth up to Timoth to shear his sheep. To shear his sheep. And she put on she put on her widow's garments from off of her. I don't know why it says she put them on. She took them off. And she covered herself with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat upon an open place. She put on she's wearing the garments of a harlot, okay? Which is, by the way, to Timoth, for she saw that Salah was grown, and she was not given unto him to wife. So Judah didn't care what was going on with Tamar. When Judah saw her, he thought to her to be a harlot, because she had covered her face. And he turned unto her by the way, and said, Go to thee, I pray thee, and let me come in unto thee. And she, for she knew not that she was the daughter of the daughter-in-law, right? This is the daughter-in-law that we were just talking about. And he said, she said, what will you give me, that thou mayest come unto me? Verse 17. And he said, I will send thee a kid from the flock. And she said, will thou give me a pledge till you send it? So there's no trust here, right? She already knows what kind of person he is. Verse 18. And he said, what pledge shall I give thee? And she said, thy signet, and thy bracelets, and thy staff in thy hand. So this was just as a bargaining chip. The signet, the ring that he was wearing, is his oath. Okay, so now he's in big trouble. And he gave it gave it her, and came unto her, and she conceived by him. So Judah just gave her his birthright to his own daughter. Okay? Verse 19, and she arose and went away and laid her veil from her, and she put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by name, so he's sending someone else, a friend, the Edomite, to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, and he found her not. Then he asked the men of the place, saying, where is the harlot that was openly by the wayside? And they said, there was no harlot in this place. Now he's in the wrong land. He doesn't know what land he's in. And he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. And also the men of the place said, there was no harlot in this place. And Judah said, let her take it to her, lest we be shamed. Behold, I sent this kid, and thou hast not found her. Verse 24, and it came to pass, about 3 months after that, it was told to Judah, saying, Tamar, thy daughter-in-law, hath played the harlot. And also, behold, she is with child by whoredom. And Judah said, bring her forth, and let her be burnt. Verse 25, when she was brought forth, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, by the man whose these are, I am with child. And she said, discern, I pray thee, whose are these signet, bracelet, and staff? Oopsie! Judah just messed up big time. Verse 26, and Judah acknowledged them and said, she has been more righteous than I, because I gave her not to Salah my son, and he knew her again no more. And it came to pass in the time of her travail that, behold, twins were in her womb. And it came to pass when she travailed that one put out of his hand a midwife and took the bond upon his hand a scarlet thread, saying, this came out first. So the first child, she's in travail giving birth. The first child's hand pops out, and she wraps a thread around it and saying, behold, this child come out first. And then it came to pass, he drew back his hand. Then behold, his brother came out. And he said, how hast thou broken forth this breach be upon thee? Therefore his name is called Perez, which means to breach. Where have we seen this before? Maybe with Jacob and Esau? Do you see, when people try to go around Yahweh, it doesn't work out well. So why do people keep denying what's going on here? It's written in just the book of Genesis is all we need to prove it, but yet we're probably going to have to go through every book, like I said, and even after we go through every book, there will still be naysayers because they don't read the book. Verse 30, and afterward came out his brother that had a scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zerah, the rising of the light. So, through Tamar's lineage would come our Messiah, Yeshua. Again, this seed line is preserved. You saw what happened when Judah mixed seed. Yahweh unalived his children. Just like that. Yahweh's not playing, guys. And although it's more lax today because the Messiah has come, the laws and the rules of the Most High